The title of next session is The Wealthy Elite. In this session, Dr. Rainer Zitelmann will explain what makes the super rich tick. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Zitelmann.
So, hello. 37% of American people want to get rich, according to polls. And among men under 50, and I see here a lot of men under 50, it's 59% that want to get rich. And every week, half of the Americans play the state lottery. I don't guess they play the state lottery to win only maybe $50 or something like this, but they hope for the jackpot to get millionaires. It's very unlikely, we know it. And every year, hundreds of thousands of books in the United States are sold about the topic how to get rich, 7 steps to get rich, 8 steps to get rich, secrets how to get rich. But this is not academic research, yes? And given the fact that so many people want to get rich, I don't understand why academic research has to tell us only so little about it. It's easier to find information about the atmosphere of planet Venus or about the love life of rare insects than about personality traits of super rich people. And I'm not joking, it's easier to find a doctoral dissertation even about the heartbeat of a pig during a 100-meter race than about psychology of super rich people. And there are a few exceptions. Maybe some of you know the books by Thomas Stanley, The Millionaire Mind or The Millionaire Next Door. Who read one of these books? Oh, so a few, okay. But, you know, these books are about people who had, on average, $5 million. These are not the super rich people where I want to speak today about. I speak about the ultra-high net worth individuals. And if scholars write about this topic, it's usually not about their psychology and their personality traits, how they get rich, but it's about things that they call social inequality or the gap between the rich and the poor, social injustice. You can find a lot of books about this, but only very little academic research about the ways how to get rich. And I tried to fill this gap a little bit. It was my, you know, I wrote 2 doctoral dissertations, and my second one is about the psychology of super rich people. What did I do? First, maybe a little bit about the method. I spoke with 45 super rich people. Most of them had a net worth between 30 million and 1 billion euro. Some of them in the poorer group had only between 10 and 30 million, and there were some billionaires who had several billion euro. But most of them were between 30 million and 1 billion. And most of them were self-made entrepreneur, self-made investors. And you know, this group is so small that quantitative methods, standardized methods, how you use it in social science sometimes, were out of question for this kind of research. So I choose a qualitative approach for this study, and I spoke with every one of them between 1 and 2 hours. In the end, the transcriptions filled 1,700 pages, and even the book, I hope you can buy it, yes, it's a Wealth Elite, fills 450 pages. And I will tell you a little bit about the results now. What I wanted to know is, what do these people have in common, the super rich people? What personality traits do they share? And first of all, to be honest, not all rich people are the same, like not all poor people are the same. This is correct on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's true that you will find common patterns if you speak with them. And I spoke with them about their biography, about their youth, about their time at school and university. Maybe that's interesting for some of the students here. And first, maybe some key findings about their families where they came from. Most of them had a background from middle-class families. There were only 2 with working-class families background and only a few that had rich parents. Most of them were middle-class. Their parents were in a lot of cases entrepreneur or they were a farmer, but only with a small business, not rich. Some of them were professionals, others were civil servants. And I spoke with them about their time at school and university. And I wanted to find out whether there's a correlation between their success at school and university on the one hand and their financial success later on the other hand. And maybe this is interesting for everyone who did not so well at school. There was absolutely no correlation between their achievement at school on the one hand and their financial success on the other hand. On the contrary, those who did well at school or the best at school were not among those who were the richest in this group. So there was absolutely no correlation. It was not so important what they learned at university or at school. Much more important was what they did alongside school, outside school. Especially 2 things were striking. One thing, half of them were competitive athletes. This was important for them. I asked them, why was it so important? They learned tolerance for frustration. This is very important. And they learned how to deal with victory, and much more important, they learned to deal with defeat. Later on, I will tell you more about this, why it is so extremely important to deal with defeat for these people. And the other thing, I asked them, how did you earn money alongside school? When I was young, most of the other students, they worked, some as taxi driver, others in a restaurant, others in factory, but most of them worked for an hourly wage. For the super rich people, this was a very rare exception that they worked for an hourly wage. Much more typical were early entrepreneurial activities, especially in sales. Is there anyone here with the students who are engaged in sales alongside school or university? Hands up. Some of you, maybe you'll become rich. They had so many ideas what to sell. One sold home window gardens, another one used wheel rims, another one used cars or used motorcycles, another one homemade radios, another one raised animals, another one rings or cosmetics or insurance policies or real estate investment products. So many different things that they sold, and they pointed out that these sales skills were very important for them, but they didn't learn that at the university. Even those of them who studied for an MBA told me that they heard almost nothing about sales, but it was so important for their life. But they learned it in another way, learning by doing. And so there's something fundamental that maybe I have to tell you. In psychology, we distinguish between 2 ways to learn. The one way is explicit learning, academic learning, book wisdom, what you learn at school, at university. This is the one way. And there's another way to learn, you call it implicit learning. Learning by doing, or you can call it the school of life. And this is much more important for them, this implicit learning, because this implicit learning leads to implicit knowledge, or you can call it tacit knowledge, or maybe much more common for some of you is gut feeling, intuition. And some people think gut feeling or intuition is something irrational or mystical. This is wrong. It's not, and it's in no way inferior to academic wisdom or to explicit knowledge, like a lot of intellectuals think. They think only book wisdom is worthy, and they think that this implicit knowledge is inferior to their knowledge. But this is not so. For the super rich people, this implicit knowledge is much more important than this explicit knowledge. And then there was one thing very important. These super rich people enjoyed swimming against the stream. They enjoyed it. They are nonconformists. And I think here in this room, I think there are a lot of nonconformists and people who enjoy swimming against the stream. I think if you're in the university, it's your everyday experience like this, yes? And that's for them, but they enjoyed it to swim against the stream. And I think it's logical. If you do only the things like everyone else, you will get no other results like everyone else. You will not get super rich with hundreds of millions. You have to do things in a different way, and to do things in a different way, you have to think in a different way. I can tell you one story about one of the richest of my interviewers. He had several billions of euro, and he didn't graduate from high school. He never saw a university, and he started with only 4 employees. Today, in this company, there are almost 30,000 employees. And he earned his money, his billions, with milk and with yogurt. This was the way how he became rich. And he gave me a funny example. And I will tell you this example. Maybe it's not surprising that it is about cows, because one time I asked him, what is your favorite animal? And my favorite animal is pigs. I don't know why. But his favorite animal is the cow, because he earned his money with cows. And so this example is about cows. And this is about a path. There's a path, and 100 cows walk along this path. And on the left side, there's a green field, a lush green field with a lot of grass. And the right side, there's another field with not as near as lush, that is not as near as lush as the field on the left side. There are only some grams of grass left. And what happens? 99 out of this 100 cows go to the left side, and the grass is very quickly eaten. And one cow goes to the right side, and this cow eats and eats and eats. It was his example. And this contrarian approach sounded very plausible for me, and I can't tell you why, because it fits to my own experience. Maybe I can tell you a few minutes a little bit about my own background, my experience. I'm a historian and sociologist on the one side. I wrote 2 doctoral theses in history and in sociology. But on the other side, I made a lot of money. I became rich as an entrepreneur and as an investor, and exactly with this contrarian approach. I started to invest in the German residential market in the beginning of the 2000s. And at this time, it was not very popular. In Germany, all the open-end real estate funds and the closed-end real estate funds, they invested in office buildings and some in retail. 75% investment was in office buildings, in residential 0. And people told me, you are crazy to invest in residential real estate at this time, especially to invest in Berlin, because Berlin is the main capital from Germany. But I remember the discussion with the boss of the leading rating agency for real estate in Germany, and he told me, haven't you seen our figures? The rents decreased since years, the purchase prices decreased since years, and on the other side, the bad economic conditions there, so many people are out of work, and you want to invest there, are you sure? I said, yeah, sure, I know all this, But this is the way and the reason why I can get it cheap. And so I bought a multi-family house this time for only 1 million, which was what was so cheap. Deutsche Bank rejected the investment. No, we want to finance such. It's a crazy idea. But I believed in it, and I have reasons because of my analysis. And I don't care about the majority, what they told me, or the banks. It was even like for these other investors, a contraindicator. And 11 years later, the situation had turned totally. Everyone wanted to invest in German real estate market, especially in Berlin, and especially in the residential market. And especially in this location where I invested, what was called then before, 11 years before, a very bad location, a poor location. But I invested there. And 11 years later, when everyone invested there, what did I do? I sold it for 4.2 million. And because I had bought it without equity, only that, I made from 0 million, from 0 euro, 4 million. And this was only this one deal. I made a lot of deals in this way. And so, why do I tell you this? Because it sounded plausible to me, this contrarian approach from these super rich people with whom I spoke. And then there was another thing that was very important for them. How to deal with defeat, how to deal with crisis, how to deal with setbacks. Every one of them had to face serious crises and setbacks, like everyone, like you, like me. But the difference is how they reacted, their reaction. This is important. For most people, it's this way. If they are successful, if they succeed, they will claim it for themselves. I'm so smart. And to his wife, now you know also how smart am I. If they are successful, but if they fail, if they have setbacks, then it's the others. Yes, they don't take the responsibility for their setbacks. They blame others for their setbacks. When they were bad at school, it was the teacher's fault. When they were not successful in their company, it was their boss or the company. And if they were, in general, not successful in life, then it was the capitalist society, maybe, or their parents or whoever. They blame others. And the super rich people, they have absolutely a different approach. They always took the blame. They blamed always themselves. For example, it was not the competitor, and it was even not the market. If the market moved in the wrong direction, they didn't blame the market. They told me, okay, it was me, I who misjudged the market. And this attitude to take responsibility not only for your success, but for your setbacks, for your failure, this makes a difference. And this gave them the feeling of the power, because if it was me, then I can change it. You can imagine, this book here is with 450 pages. I could tell you a lot more, and I mentioned this 1,700 pages from the interviewers. But in the end, I will ask you for something. This academic wealth research where I'm talking about, it's still in its beginnings. And it's only one of the first steps there. I mentioned it before, how little we know about the psychology and the personality traits of super rich people. And hopefully, some of the students here in your room will be as fascinated as I am by this topic. Maybe you will write your master thesis or your doctoral thesis about this topic, how to get rich. It's so interesting for so many people. And I think for you, it's easier to understand these people and could be interesting for you. Why? Because I think everyone here in this room is a nonconformist. I think in your university, maybe if I ask you, who is on a university where this libertarian approach is the majority opinion of the students? No, no one, yes? You always have to swim against the stream here. You're nonconformist, and so sometimes it's hard in life. I know it because I did it all my life, and it's not always funny. It's sometimes very difficult. But the good news is, this is my experience, you can grow very, very rich in this way if you have this attitude. This is the good news. And so if you want to know more about this first step, read my book, buy my book at Amazon or things outside, you can buy it. And the other thing is, please think about it, whether you can continue with this research, maybe with your master thesis or even the doctoral thesis. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm 3 minutes. We have 3 minutes for discussion here. I heard later on we can continue the discussion outside, and the only thing I want to ask you, see, my English is not as good as it should be, so if you speak slowly and clearly, then it's easy for me to understand you. So I'm waiting for your questions now.
Thank you very much for the speech. And one thing I've been really big about over the years are libertarian students being entrepreneurs, doing practical things. Because, like, in my own opinion, I feel we're very good at explaining how the market economy works and how capitalism works. But when it actually comes to, like, actually practically working on what we preach, I feel in many ways we kind of fall short. What are practical pieces of advice you can possibly give to people in here whereby they can leave this place and in the next few weeks, the next few months, they can begin practical steps to take them more in an entrepreneurial path and an entrepreneurial journey? Thanks.
Okay, if I got it right, it was of the more the practical steps. What do you do first, second, and third? Yes, I think. First of all, my book is not about this 7 steps to give you concrete advice what to do. I don't believe in this kind of books who tell you do first, second, third, this way. Yes, it's more that I give you an example. If you want to get rich now, and this could be the first practical step, and you want to know about it, you should speak with people who became rich. This is what I did. Maybe I'm going to ask you, who in this room want to get rich? Okay, a lot of them. And if you had the opportunity to speak in the next 3 months with 45 super rich people about their attitude, about their experience, about the way they think, who would do this? Sure, and the next question, this is the last, who knows 45 super rich people with hundreds of millions? Okay, so, and this is the reason I wrote this book, yes, because you can learn from their experience, but the other thing that I can tell you, learn how to sell. I mentioned it, how important sales skills are. If you are in university, do such things alongside university. Think about how can you make money, but not working for an hourly wage. This is what I mentioned as very important experience from that. Learning by doing is very important. It's not about book wisdom. It's important to read these books, especially my book, yes, but on the other side, on the other hand, it's very important to have this own experience about it. I think my time is over, and I would like to continue with the discussion in the other room out there. Thank you very much for your interest in the topic. Thank you.